clinically obese.
20% of the military.
20%.
Wow. Yeah, but is
and
that because
something like 40% or 30% or something is like overweight?
Yeah, but is it like morbidly obese the way that like The Rock is technically clinically morbidly obese? Like anyone with muscle mass is theoretically.
Wait, really? I thought like that obesity
no.
is BMI, and
it is, but it also doesn't take into consideration like your muscle mass.
I think it was just like because in 2012 it was like something like 10% and it doubled. And like
I bet it has a lot to do with like roided out dudes.
Maybe, but
wow,
there are a lot of fat people just fucking flying drones now.
That sounds nice. I can fly a drone.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's also kind of psychotic.
Anyway. All right, so let's get back into this.
I think there have been like studies on that too, like how it affects people.
Yeah, we need an intro song.
They're not even
Ktown Social Club.
Do you know
K-Town?
Do you know the company DJI that makes
Yeah.
the drones?
Yeah.
You know America's trying to ban them too, right?
Oh, doesn't surprise me.
Because of Chinese surveillance.
Wait, they're a Chinese company?
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Ktown Social Club. We're back with Ed Choi, Sketch on TikTok and Instagram, and Douglas Kim, who is I am Douglas Kim on Twitter, X, and Doug Fantastic on Instagram, and Michael Wan, who's on a secret trip to, deep state activities or whatever he's up to.
Protect from the deep state.
Yeah.
Himself.
Yeah, in the last episode, we talked about how the United States is anti-Asian. I mean, they could be anti-black, anti-whatever, anti-working class, but they are also anti-Asian.
Yeah.
And we gave a few examples of things that are going on that show that. So this episode, we're going to talk about what some say is going to be the leader of the world within the next, few decades, or at least by the 22nd century will be the king of the world, maybe. So we're going to talk about China. Okay?
China.
Doug knows more than the average person about China, I think.
I'm still not an expert. I need to do a little bit more.
You're like...
No one used the E word. We just said you were above average.
Yeah. You know more than the average person. And
I want to do a lot more reading, is all I'm saying.
I'm guessing Ed probably also knows more than the average person, considering the average person doesn't know shit, right?
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
And I think
I feel like the average Asian person knows a lot more about China than...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not Koreans, though.
Yeah. Or what about Taiwanese Americans? Do they know a lot about China?
They know a lot about everything before 1949, but anything after that might be a little bit colored by perceptions.
My understanding is that when the KMT took over Taiwan, a lot of people, they were pretty brutal, like the KMT dictatorship. Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to the Korean. I mean, they're
South Korea?
Very parallel governments. There are reports that say Chiang Kai-shek had a very close relationship with Syngman Rhee, and they wanted to create a Pacific Pact similar to NATO in Asia, in the Asian region.
I see. And Syngman Rhee was the first president of the Republic of Korea. He was married to a white woman.
Yes.
He lived in exile.
Austrian, actually. Francisca Donaire, who was said by CIA agents to be a Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah, Syngman Rhee had lived in the U.S. for a while, right, during the Japanese occupation?
Princeton, yes.
And later, I think he was exiled to, was it Hawaii? Do you know about
that? That was in 1960.
61-ish. Okay,
1960.
Right.
I think he had to be helicoptered out of the Blue House from protests against his rule. And yes, he was exiled to Hawaii.
Like the U.S. soldiers in Vietnam, 75, was in Saigon. They had to be helicoptered out.
Yeah, so basically
I saw that building when I was there.
So CIA helicopter him out of the Blue House.
I know Hawaii was different back then, but it's like, oh no, I'm exiled to Hawaii. How horrible.
Yeah. Hey, that we talk about, Tibet should be free or Taiwan should be free the Uyghurs. Hey, what about Puerto Rico and Hawaii? Should Hawaii be free?
Yes.
I mean,
Hawaii
legally. Yes, it was
Hawaii should
annexed
be its own
illegally.
country.
Even,
Guam.
Puerto Rico should be its own
even
country.
by the standards
Guam.
of the times of the 19th century, it was an illegal annexation.
Should California or Texas and these states, should they go back to Mexico?
I don't know about Mexico, but we should deunionize California, I think.
I mean, I don't know about any of that policy stuff because they had a war. The Mexicans lost and Americans won. So
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah.
California's about to break off from the mainland anyway. Like, we should just be our own country.
Would the union allow it though?
no.
Yeah, we saw what happened we weren't around, but we saw what happened in the 19th century when the Confederacy tried to break off from the Union. That was to free the slaves, right? I mean, Malcolm X says it was to preserve the Union, but
It was a
Liberals say it
complicated
was to
situation.
free the
Basically,
I don't think that was the main objective. That's what became focused
yeah.
in history.
yeah. I mean, at the time, basically, the North and the South were vying for political control over the Union. And obviously, every free state and every slave state you add, affects the balance of power. And, at the time, the South was still per capita making a lot more money than the North. So the North wanted to curtail a lot of that. But it was also industrializing as well. But the impact of that wasn't felt.
Yeah, the South
And
had the
so,
plantations. They were making a lot of money.
With Lincoln, it's very clear that he was going to be an abolitionist type of president in that he would not probably allow any more slave states to be made to be added to the Union, whereas he'd probably add a lot more free states. So the South saw that as an encroachment on their power and eventual kind of curtailing of all their slavery activities because, that gave them an economic advantage over the North. And the North wanted to obviously, curtail a lot of that. And
Didn't Lincoln have slaves, though?
Lincoln, no. Lincoln did not. I think you're talking about more the founding fathers.
I know they did for sure.
Yeah. Lincoln was kind of unpopular a little bit with the left crowd because of his participation in some sort of trials against, I think it was the Sioux. I'm not exactly sure.
SIOUX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in that region, I don't know if it was Sioux or some other tribe, but basically there was a revolt where I believe he was more of a mediator and kind of tried to mitigate the amount of death, because the settlers there, they were out for blood.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of look, I need Michigan or whatever state on my side because we're in a fucking civil war right now. So what I have to do is just kind of figure out okay, who's actually responsible for some crimes or whatever, and try to minimize the amount of executions. But
Right.
yes, there is that happened.
Okay.
Technically.
Anyway, this episode we're going to cover a lot of China stuff. So we have a few things we're going to bring up. And, China is, I remember reading about, even in the early 2000s, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy, he wrote an article back then, I think it was for Yahoo or something, and he said, hey, China's going to take over everything, we have to be, it wasn't said in a menacing way. It was just hey, China's
A
going to...
matter of fact.
Yeah, hey, we got to, see this opportunity or whatever and, be prepared for it. Also at the same time, you had figures like Gordon Chang saying, China's going to fall any day now. But what we've seen over the last 20 plus years is that China has just continued to get stronger and stronger, more powerful, more developed. The people seem to be living in more and more better lives than they were 20 years ago. And, I think especially when we see the technology and the high-speed rail and, they have apps like TikTok, and Ed mentioned earlier their drone company DJI is the U.S. is maybe targeting it to be banned here. It seems China really is going to rule, or at least be the clear number one top dog in the world.
Economic, at least. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
that was obvious. I mean,
Right.
It was so obvious when you were sending all the cheap production to China. What did we think was going to happen?
Yeah.
Right.
America deindustrialized.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's all good, but America's problem with China, at least what they say is, China is a totalitarian state. It's a dictatorship. They're not democratic. They don't have votes. They don't have voting there. You have this guy Xi Jinping, who's not elected by the people, and he's going to be, dictator for life or whatever. And, they don't have democracy. So, and that's like one of our, the key things that we in the United States is what makes us great is our freedom and democracy, however you define freedom and democracy. So, interestingly, I saw this on Twitter, and this was put up by Jason Smith, who is an American journalist in China, published author, radio show host, podcaster, and media commentator.
He's like, what photo would really encompass my whole stance?
He's got a black shirt with a black vest and a pink tie.
It looks more Vietnam than China.
Yeah,
fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of like the 4 stars that represent different.
Anyway, he's in Beijing, but he put up this. I guess there was a survey done, and it says China versus the U.S. How many people think their country is democratic? Now, the source is Democracy Perception Index. This is in 2022. It might be different now, but we can see, according to this graphic, that 83% of Chinese people surveyed believe that their country is democratic, even though they live under a one-party state, the Communist Party of China. They consider mostly themselves to be democratic, whereas in the United States, we call ourselves a leader of freedom and democracy.
Why is there a graphic with money around?
Because I guess we're capitalists.
Is that the capitalist symbol, and that's the
Yeah,
that's kind of
so.
funny.
That's the Politburo. I don't know.
Yeah.
But only
That's
49.
Russian and disinformation.
Yeah, 49% of United States of Americans think they're democratic, which means what is that? 34%. That's like 66% more of Chinese than Americans believe that their country is democratic. How is it that a country? Did you get the same calculation?
Yeah.
Okay.
83. Yeah, sure.
So did you? How is it that in the United States, where we have these huge election campaigns and, we're known for freedom and democracy, why is it that most Americans don't seem to agree, whereas most Chinese seem to think that they do have democracy? Well, what's that about? I mean, what is democracy? Ed, how do you define democracy? What is it?
Where the people are in control, theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
You're electing officials who have their constituents' best interests at heart is idealistically what democracy is supposed to be.
Right.
But I think the operative thing in this image is what's actually at the bottom in fine print is perception index. Perception. I think because we have a public democracy, quote unquote, the choices give people, I guess, kind of like the view behind the curtain almost. Like when you have 2 choices, like for instance,
You're talking about like grass is greener a little bit here?
yeah, kind of. So like we always have that saying in America, right? Like the election is between like a shit sandwich and like
Shittier sandwich.
yeah. You're basically either way, it's like this like illusion of choice. And because we have this choice, it almost makes it more obvious that we don't have a choice. You know what I mean? Like it's easier to see it. Whereas like potentially in a one-party system, you're not getting that view. Like you're not seeing that it's an illusion. So maybe that could define, I think it at the very least defines why America's perception is so low. Because like most Americans, I think, have come to the realization that like this whole 2-party system is bullshit. You know what I mean?
I don't know. There's a fair amount of Americans who still like.
No. And that's why there's still 49 or like whatever percent. But like, I think, but versus China is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Whereas like without that, there might be more of a veil.
That is a major flaw with this thing. I think it's more. I feel like the question should be, do you feel like your country is more democratic than the United States, or then you feel like your thing is more democratic than China? Then we'd get a little bit more clarity as to like both their views.
I don't think that was I don't think that was questioned in a comparative way. I think it was like, do you think you live in a democracy? You know
but
what
I
mean?
will say that for Chinese people, especially in the past 40 to 50 years, China has had such remarkable economic growth.
Huge.
That it's like, yeah, why wouldn't they support their government?
Right.
Every year they see their lives improving, like
Exactly.
they're getting more shit, they're getting more space, they're getting like these futuristic cities. They're like, fuck yeah, like this is what I want. The government's working, So I think that's basically it comes down to, I mean, even Bill Clinton said this once. He said, it's the economy, stupid. Like, what do most people care about? Even in America, like they care about their material conditions. They care about, is their life improving?
Like, did you buy 5 things at the grocery store and you broke the $100 mark? Like, we care about that shit.
Yeah. And so it's just like, people's standard of living across the board. Like, because I've talked to like a lot of Chinese people and they talk about, censorship and whatever. And they're just kind of like, yeah, there is some censorship that happens, and there's usually with the government and criticizing the government, but like nobody really fucking cares. Like things are fine. Things are improving.
Yeah.
So who's complaining about the government?
Right.
Like shut the fuck up.
Whatever they've been doing in China has been working out. So like they feel like they're in control. Whereas with here, it's like we're being told that we're
voting.
Control,
we're voting harder.
But then we watch like the people that we elect not doing any of the things that they promised. So like we
killing
know
children,
we're not right. We know we're not in control. So it's like
something none of us voted for.
Yeah. Why are we supposedly the richest country in the world, but like our roads are the shittiest in the world? Like the illusion
spending,
doesn't exist.
Billions of dollars, to Ukraine and Israel, and we can't even fucking fix our roads.
Right. Like the illusion doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people care about democracy or whatever as long as their lives are getting better. The average person doesn't give a shit.
I think it's more, I think like it's more like, do you think the government is working for you?
Yes.
And I think in China's case, it definitely is, where in America, it's obviously not because, like even in LA, right? Like we talk about public transportation every time, but it's a fucking joke. I talked to some guy who was working with like this urban planning thing, like of like a subway ostensibly for LA, and they were like, yeah, it's probably gonna not be done by until 2070. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like China's like in 2008, they're like, we're gonna do high speed rail, and
like
Elon Musk in California
years?
said everything, whatever. In 15 years, or they laid down 25,000 kilometers of track.
Yeah.
We have laid down 0.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, I think people in China see that as like, oh, there's all this fucking red tape and bureaucracy in America and you can't get anything done. What use is a government like that? Like if we want some, like even in during COVID, right? There was a lot of hoopla over the Shanghai lockdowns, and a lot of people in Shanghai actually protested, like, hey, these are too restrictive. So the Shanghai government actually loosened some of those restrictions. So it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, if we do protest, things actually do change here. So I think a lot of that has to do with, hey, whatever works, like if our government is working, then great, we're democratic. I don't care, what the machinations are or whatever.
You saying that just like reminded me of something. Why are Asians in Asia more likely to congregate than the Asians in America? Like China, Korea, they protest all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Why does that not translate here?
I think we're busy trying to fit in, and
I think that's true.
We don't want to cause trouble.
That was our
strategy.
We already stick out. Like, why would we put our necks on the line?
Since Hartzell, that was our strategy: assimilate, right? To blend in, do what the Americans, which usually meant white people, do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And don't make any trouble.
Don't cause any waves. Yeah.
We all have white names: Ed, Mike, and Doug.
Yeah. In fact, like I was like
my name's
always
from Scotland.
I was always like really happy that my mom didn't put my Korean name as my middle name. She accidentally just put the J initial. It's like people used to be like, no, but what does the J stand for? And I'd be like, here's my birth certificate. It literally stands for the letter J.
Stands for Jesus.
What is your Korean name?
Jiho.
Jiho.
최지호.
Cheju.
My middle name is my mother's maiden name. I don't know if that was.
Whoa, that's very progressive.
Some people did that
No,
though.
your mother's
in
maiden
my,
name?
in
in
my
Asian
neighborhood.
in the Asian community, that's like pretty progressive for the
Korean.
80s. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Well, what-
so I'm Douglas Lee Kim, and my sister's also Janet Lee Kim. So I don't think they understood the concept of middle name, so they just were like,
No, yeah. Your last name should have just been hyphenatedly Kim.
Yeah.
So your name is Kim E? Like, what's your actual Korean name?
I mean, I
though?
have a Korean name. It's Kim Dok-sol. But
That's kind of a unique name. I don't.
That is a very unique name.
yeah, people said it was like Shigol or whatever. I mean, it came from my grandfather, who, you know, he named all of our cousins with Dok, like Dokhyun, Dokhwa, Doksu, Doksol.
You got Tokso.
Yeah, and then he grew up in the very north region, like right near the border of North Korea and China.
I mean, Seoul's like right there too, kind of. It's pretty north.
You mean
Like right on the, like, even this is like
You
even
mean like
north of Pyongyang.
northeast, like where
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
hike
yeah.
higher.
Yeah,
Do you know which area of North Korea he's from?
I'm not exactly 100% sure, but yeah, in 45 he was like, "Yo, we need to get the fuck out of here because communists are going to kill us," because they apparently owned a fair amount of land at the time.
Yeah, my grandma did too. Yeah,
And my
Japanese
great-grandfather-
collaborators, right?
I don't think they were collaborators. They were just like, you know, Yangban land.
Yeah, my grandma says she lived well under the communists. I mean, under the Japanese.
Well, yeah, a lot of landed
Yeah, right.
wealth people. did.
Yeah, like for some reason my family says like Takwan instead of Tamuji.
Right. Yeah.
And like when
Takwan.
when I found that out like 3 years ago, I was like, "What do you mean it's not called?" People are like, "Why are you saying Takwan?" I was like, "Because that's what it is." And they're like, "No, that's Tanmuji. Takwan's Japanese." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I found out that like Korean people put like sesame oil in their kimbap rice instead of sushi niko, which is what our family always used. And then there was like a period when I was like, "Oh my god, were my family Japanese sympathizers / traitors?" And all of my family were like, no, we weren't. But there was, before the war, apparently some back and forth because like our family was like more well-to-do.
I mean, most of the leadership in South Korea came from, you know, collaborators.
Except for Syngman Rhee, right?
Well, that's why the CIA chose him, because they knew that that would go over a lot well or better, even though they
Right.
still did protest against it.
But you know that thing about the takkwang and the tamuji? You know, there's other foods like, you've heard of takdoritang,
Yeah.
but I guess that's the Japanese way.
Fuck, I call it takdori-tang.
It's takbokumtang.
God damn it.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so then my grandfather was like, "We need to get the fuck out of here." My great grandfather was like, "I'm too old. If I die, I die, I guess."
You ever say tamanegi for onion?
No.
Okay. You just say 양파.
No, in fact, when I was in elementary school, I was like in the school choir, and they were like, we have some like Japanese people coming over to visit the school, and they were like, "Does anyone speak Japanese?" And I was like, "Who are you asking?" I was like, "I'm like the only Asian kid here." And I was like, "Actually, my grandma does speak Japanese." So like I raised my hand, and my grandma was like cursing me. She's like, "I don't really speak Japanese that well." So
Right.
to this day, I can say "Konnichiwa, watashi wa Ed desu."
私はエドです。あなたの名前は何ですか?
난데봐요. 가게 분신の術.
何歳ですか? 40歳ですか?
돈 고급기の術.
Okay. How do we get on this? Yeah, so your your grandfather's from North
You know what I
Korea.
was doing. That's funny.
What is it, a porn thing?
Anime.
He knows.
MMA?
Anime.
Oh, you guys are into anime.
Oh God.
I mean, enough.
Everyone watched Naruto.
Yeah, really.
I've never seen it. Should I? Is it that good?
It is really good, but there's
Only
like
the first few
literally.
seasons, and then it gets
I only
fucking-
got through the first few seasons because there's over 1,000 fucking
Yeah,
episodes.
don't watch the whole thing.
My ADHD cannot allow me to finish it.
I don't think I'm not going to get into that.
But the first couple seasons were fucking fire.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, so China's democratic, I guess. Earlier the point about Shanghai and the lockdowns.
Yeah.
What my take was like, it's interesting how in China you cannot vote, but if you protest, they'll just be like,
Okay.
all right, fine. So, whereas here we can protest constantly, shut down freeways and everything. We can vote, raise money and all, nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
So in that sense, it's like, okay, it seems that the United States just gives the illusion of a democracy.
It does.
Meanwhile, it's not democratic at all. It's just a fake show. Whereas in China, they don't say, hey, you can vote and choose or whatever. They're just like, this is the way it is. But if enough people get pissed off and say, we don't like this.
But it's also kind of like it's not like a dictatorship either. It's more like there's 90 million members of the Communist Chinese, Communist Party.
Yeah, it's like 1 out of like 15 people or something, right?
Yeah, so it's just like the government is organized by like these like, people all over the country, and it's the party, they decide, oh, are you doing well governing this country, this part of the country? Hey, we're going to call you up to like maybe be voted in. Like we're going to vote amongst ourselves to see if you want to be higher up or whatever. And that's, kind of how Xi Jinping rose to power. He didn't start off by being this like rich whatever, like and getting a lot of influence. He started off like, in a small province.
Village manager, I think.
It's just more like, hey, if you do well managing this province or this village or whatever, then we'll consider you for, bigger opportunities.
Right. So if anyone can join the Communist Party or apply,
yeah,
I'm guessing you got to at least be
you have to pass
some level
a lot
of smart.
you have to pass a lot of Marxist tests
Yeah.
in order to gain it.
So you have to be. They have their own qualification system. If you want to join the Communist Party, you got to, I guess, pass some tests or whatever.
Which
Whereas
is not
here,
dissimilar from Singapore.
Okay, but over here it's like anybody can run, right?
Yeah.
As long as you have a citizenship or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Even like Mary Carey, I think she ran. She was a porn star back in the day.
Oh. Wow.
I think was this
And Ronald Reagan.
We
He was
have
an
like
actor.
Jesse Ventura. And
Jesse Ventura, governor,
Arnold
right?
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, and Ronald Reagan used to have that
Or
same
Kamala
very
Harris. That cackling idiot. Or even Joe Biden. That guy can't even pass a wellness.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, how can you say that we live in, like, be confident that the U.S. is a democracy when, like, we elected Joe Biden, who, like, promised everyone, like, getting rid of, like, tuition debt and all this stuff, and then they
criticize.
Instead, gave that money to, like, I mean, Ukraine, understandable, but, like, then to Israel? Like, are you fucking shitting me right now?
Yeah.
Like, we can't even, like, afford health care, but we're going to fund a genocide? That's
and the
crazy.
Israelis get health care from what I
We
understand.
fund
We
Israeli.
fund their health care.
Yeah, it's.
So
I mean, even
ridiculous.
I think
So,
Candace
like,
Owens.
how is this a fucking democracy? It's not.
Yeah, it seems like we're just getting screwed over by our
hypocrisy.
leaders.
Like, even in L.A., we, like, voted in the blue people, and what are they doing?
Right. Yeah.
The same thing the Republicans would have done. They're doing the same shit.
Yeah.
But they're just saying they're not doing it.
Correct.
Which is worse, in my opinion. It's just kind of like,
I mean, they're both equally bad, but the one is more frustrating, yes.
Yeah.
It does make you feel a little bit more angry, maybe, because, like,
Well,
don't
because
fucking pee on me and tell me it's fucking raining.
yeah.
Like, I'm still going to be mad. I don't want to get peed on.
Well, it's more like, aside from frustration, it's also like you have these cronies that are parroting that line and like fucking annoying you when you're trying to say, no, it's not. Or like trying to like attack you when it's no, it's not. So it's just kind of like, that's even more annoying to me, where it's like, I don't know.
Well, anyway, yeah, so I think, yeah, maybe China, I heard one Chinese guy say, hey, to some concerned Westerners, saying, hey, we're not trying to replace your guys' system. We're not trying to be the alternative to your system. We're just trying to show the world that alternatives exist, and this is our way of doing things. And we should live in a world where there's all kinds of systems. So I don't know. I think there's some things we can learn from China, even if they are a totalitarian dictatorship or whatever. Like, how they can get things done so quickly.
Planned economy. I mean,
Yeah, and this country is really, I mean, when I was growing up here
free-for-all.
in the 80s, it was like, yeah, it seemed great and everything. And I don't know, as you get older, it's just like, man.
Nothing has progressed since the 80s here. The roads are the same. Like,
the
nothing
airports.
has grown.
Whenever I go to like airports, if I'm not in the international section, I'm just like, what the fuck is
like
in
they just
Chicago?
redid the Incheon airport, and I'm like, the Incheon airport's new comparatively to what we deal with here in
You mean
America.
they redid the airport? You mean they opened the second terminal?
Oh, is that what happened?
There's a separate terminal now. Yeah.
Incheon Airport, like that came out in 2005.
Yeah, like
right?
it's
something like that.
Yeah, comparative
I
to
think
like
before
LAX, it's like a pretty new airport, you know?
Yeah. But the LAX is just like the only time I'm like, this is nice was in the international section because they have to keep up appearances.
Yeah. Except for when you're trying to get to it to leave.
Because like,
it's
you know,
all the
my
way back
theory is
there.
that like once the Soviet Union fell in 91, like the politicians were like, okay, we don't have to do anything anymore. We don't have to keep up appearances.
Yeah.
We don't care about these people.
It just goes right in their pocket now. Everything.
And they went on a war spree, huh? Yugoslavia, was it Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Ukraine, Gaza, what else? And other conflicts they're involved in.
I mean, every single big public works project that benefited Americans were a reaction to the Soviet Union. Like, you know, Eisenhower, you know, during the Cold War, he built out the highways. He was like, oh, we need a highway network, and, you know, we need to show everyone we're great or whatever.
I swear, that fucking Gorbachev, huh? That guy fucked things up, huh?
Yeah, and then, you know, the USSR, once they sent Sputnik up to space, well, we need a space program too. And then, you know, that led to a lot of developments, that technological developments. And then even the fucking internet, that was a DARPA project to ensure the connectivity of government and academic institutions in the case of nuclear war. That was actually the purpose for the internet. And so, you know, and then you know, obviously the internet has...
So you're saying
worse.
You're saying the internet was developed not by private industry but by huge public spending.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was a DARPA project. It was military.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I really like. I feel like we peaked for me. I think around like 99, 2000.
That's why the whole MAGA campaign was genius, because like it's. Whether what side of the line you're on, it's known that America is not what it used to be. Like, it's shit. It's fucking shit here. And, like, I don't know that much about China and a totalitarian state. But, like, at least you have someone controlling everything. Whereas here, we have this...
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly. We live under this guise that we are in control. But in reality, it's big pharma. It's, like, the
Military,
like association and NRA. Oh my god, I was having like such a brain fart. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like all these like selfish groups that are in control of the country. Like the sugar industry, like they control part of the country, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like versus like a human controlling those industries. Like,
yeah, so it seems like the United States is really, it's run by a group of like corporations for the most part.
I mean, it's always been.
Big business interests.
Yeah.
Whereas China is actually run by Marxists.
you could probably count on like all three of our hands the amount of people in America that are in control of everything.
Okay. Well, you know, also when
Deep
you
state.
say that it really sucks here, I know it pisses off a lot of Americans, especially, you know, like, you know, PBD, Patrick Bet-David.
Who's that?
I think he's some Iranian guy. He does a lot of podcasting, valuetainment. He's he's a huge Trump supporter. But apparently he says, like, you know, you shouldn't be complaining in this country. It's so great in this country. How dare, you know, you shouldn't complain. Like,
Sounds like
where is it better anywhere else? That kind of
Everywhere else.
And, you know, Malcolm X used to say the same thing, is they want you to think that it's hell everywhere else, that whatever hell you're catching here, it's going to be much worse elsewhere. Now, I agree that America is probably a much better place to live than in many parts of the world, but I don't think that means we can't complain and talk shit about the huge problems that we do have.
Yeah.
So,
that's American. That's in our First
And that's
Amendment.
even from like an American standard point of view. You know what I mean? Like, I watched this. One of my guilty pleasures is a show called 90 Day Fiance.
okay, I've seen
Yeah.
clips.
It's very entertaining.
Big Ed.
I like to watch it mostly because it's like you watch this like human nature, like just in the weirdest forms. But like in that show, it's a common theme that whenever you date someone from outside the country, everyone in America is like, oh, they just want a green card. They just want a green card. And in almost every single instance, the people are like, I have my family here. Like, you think America's that great that I want to like leave all my friends, my family, my whole life? And it's like, even in the poorer countries, it's like we're comparing it to like some of the, you know, conveniences that we have here, but like they don't give a fuck. They don't care. They're like, yeah, sure, our country's poor and it sometimes sucks, but like we have community here and family and you guys don't. And like I think like we don't think of some of those things.
That actually sounds a lot like the Korean defectors, the North Korean defectors in that video. So there's this documentary that this guy made interviewing like North Korean defectors.
David Yoon, yeah.
And he found that they said this kind of like the same thing of like, yeah, like, you know, I want to see my kids. I want to, you know, be with my family. Like, yeah, maybe materially some things are good here, but at the end of the day,
but sometimes without those material things, all you have is your family. So it has more of an importance.
But it just shows the mentality of Americans.
Yeah.
They think that life is predicated on your material.
It is. Yeah.
You know?
That's what we think. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very elitist way to think, to be honest.
It's a very capitalist.
Yeah, it is. Which leads to elitism because someone has to be on top,
yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I did meet a North Korean woman in Korea, in Seoul, and had, you know, we talked to her for a bit, and yeah, she told me she only came to South Korea to make money, and she's saving. And when she has enough, she's eventually going to move back. So.
And do what, though? Can you convert that money and take it with you?
Yeah.
You can probably go to China.
She can,
You're going to, like, buy a bunch of gold, and you're like, oh.
Probably would have, like, a Chinese bank account or
no,
something.
you know, there's ways, you know,
fair.
You know, like Zelle or Venmo. Yeah. There's ways. My understanding, you can like call somebody who can do it and be like, hey, I need to send money to my relative in Korea, North Korea. And you send the money, but it can be done like pretty quickly, even within North Korea. So there's a lot of stuff going on, I think, there that we don't really know about. And even when I was in northern China, like in the Yanbian Autonomous Korean Prefecture, there were a lot of North Koreans who lived there as students or doing business or, you know, working in the restaurants. You know, I would go to the North Korean restaurant there, and I remember I went to Dandong. No, not Dandong. Tumen. That's a border city. And if you just cross the bridge, not like a huge bridge, like a pretty small bridge, you just cross the bridge, you're in North Korea. So I was able to go on the bridge, and then there's like a rope. That's the border. It's a freaking rope.
Like at a club? Like a
kind of, yeah. It was pretty simple, and I was like, "Wow!" So if I
There's
just
a bouncer, at the border.
That's literally what I'm picturing right now.
yeah, there was like a Chinese dude there. I guess he controls access. But while I was there, I was like, "Let me take a picture," because behind me, behind the rope, you could see at the other side of the bridge, there was a building, and you see the portraits of the leaders like Kim Il Sung and Kim Jong Il. And while I was on the bridge, a freaking North Korean van came by, full of like North Korean ajashis. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, what's going on? They're going back to North Korea. And then as they were driving past me slowly, I just took a look in the van. It was just not just cartons and cartons of cigarettes. Just like so much cigarettes. I was like, they just buy cigarettes in China and just take them to North Korea? Like, what's going on here?
I guess so.
And then I think 6 months later, I was back in China. I went there again, this time to film something. And while I was there that time, a group of Chinese tourists, I think about maybe 20 of them, they literally just went past the rope thing and they just kind of walked into North Korea like no big deal. And I was just like, that's so interesting that that it's like this,
Lax.
It's not a big deal. And then I had a driver in China, and he told me when he was in the military, he worked at one of the border places and there was a bridge. So he said what he would used to do is they used to meet at the bridge. Him and North Korean soldiers would meet at the bridge, and they would hang out, play cards, and eat, and like have fun together, and and give each other like gifts and stuff like that. So it's really not the way we think, where they're gonna like shoot people and all this. It wasn't like that. And then
or the Mexican border even.
Yeah, and then even I drove to the border where where the Chinese, North Korean, and Russian border all enter.
Oh,
whatever.
there's a place like that?
Yeah, there's a place like that.
Is it Vladivostok?
And do they have the stuff on the ground where you're like, if you put your foot here, you're standing in all three countries?
You didn't have that, but I was right at the border where like my arm was in Russia. Anyway, you can see it. There's like North Korea right here, Russia's right here, I'm in China here. And they had that too. But on the way there, you're driving along the border, and along the border, you see that it's just a fence. and you see on the other side of the fence is like a river, but it's not like it's like a creek almost. And I'm like, I don't think it's that difficult for people in the north to come over to sneak into China and then sneak back over. I heard there's a lot of them out there living in there, and then they work or do whatever, and then they always go back and forth. So I don't think it's that big of a deal there.
It sounds like North Korea is like they're Mexico.
Yeah,
kind of.
China's
Yeah.
Mexico.
People assume that like the Mexican border is like the entry points where it's just like, everywhere, but it's not. Majority of it, I don't know now after the whole Trump ordeal with the wall and stuff, but back in the day there was many spots where you could just like, it was just like a field and you just walked right across it.
Yeah, my understanding was the borders were pretty open. The U.S.-Mexico border was pretty open, and it was pretty free to come back and forth, but it wasn't until, NAFTA, the trade agreement between U.S.
When was that? 2000?
I think like 93-ish or so.
It was like 96 or
So
something.
when that happened, that's when Bill Clinton, I think he called it Operation Gatekeeper. That's when they started to militarize the border, because they knew that the trade deal would put a lot of Mexican farmers out of business because they couldn't compete with the American agribusiness that was getting so much in subsidies. So they expected a bunch of like newly out of work Mexicans to come in. So,
Wow.
So
they made a trade agreement that they knew would.
I mean, we have a history of stupid projections,
I mean,
like cheese.
cheese.
Yeah.
Cheese?
You guys know about the cheese caverns, right?
I don't know about that.
Really?
Caverns?
Caverns of cheese.
Yeah, like back in what was it, like the 40s or 50s or 60s or something? Like the government decided to subsidize dairy farmers.
Oh.
So they were like producing massive amounts of dairy, more than America could consume. So
Right.
then they started turning it into cheese, and we couldn't consume that either because there was so much surplus. So then they started storing the cheese in these caverns somewhere in Middle America, I think. It's 100% true. You can look it up. And that's like why like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, government cheese started becoming a thing, because they were trying to get rid of all of this cheese.
Government
And to this
cheese.
day, there's so much surplus that those caverns are apparently still full of government
Wow.
subsidized
Yeah, but
cheese.
isn't it all fucking ruined by now?
I mean,
does
I don't
cheese
know.
I don't know. It might be.
Some are
decades?
aged. I don't know.
Anyway, I'm not sure how we got on this, but
Me, it's my ADHD
China.
brain.
Yeah.
Something about China.
yeah,
and the
let's go
border.
back to China. So let's move on to the second thing. So as we know, the U.S. is going to ban TikTok, right? Or are they still talking about it, or they are going to do it?
Yeah, you should be on
I
top
don't
of this.
think it's been fully passed yet, but from what I've spoken with like lawyers and things like that, one of whom works for TikTok, it's going to at least be in court for at least 2 years, at least.
So you got a few more years on TikTok at
At
least.
Yeah, just because like TikTok is trying to sue the government, and do all that stuff, and that stuff's gonna all get dragged out.
Right.
So at the very least, it's gonna be around for at least like 2 years. But personally, I don't think China is going to relent.
Yeah.
They're not.
I think they probably view their algorithm as too valuable.
No, it is, because that's exactly what this is about. It's about control,
Yeah.
because TikTok's algorithm allows the dissemination of information that is oftentimes gatekept on other social media platforms.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's why they're making it about like this surveillance thing, even though TikTok has been proven that all of their data is stored in Texas.
Texas, yeah.
And TikTok is the only social media company that has a third party that regularly audits that place and the data that's stored there. It's
That's not even a standard. The other social
no,
media companies.
literally TikTok is the only one that does it. So like if any of the social media companies could not sell their data, it's TikTok, because it's literally overseen by Oracle, which is a huge company, you know? And so
Why-
they
yeah.
turn it into this idea that it's about surveillance, because in actuality it's about control. It's about them wanting
Everything is also
the
projection
algorithm.
too, because like I think somebody found out not recently, but a while ago, that every Apple iPhone has a Cisco chip that has like a thing that was installed by the NSA that like kind of fucking like sends packets of data to the fucking NSA
I'm sure.
Like whatever. So every that's why China banned Apple phones for the government, because they were like, yeah, this is
Right.
a security risk.
So it's like a projection thing where they're like, hey, we do it.
So they must be doing
yeah.
it some way.
So like, don't look at us. Look at that. Look, they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
Like,
always seems whatever the U.S. accuses another country of, they themselves are guilty of. Now, the what was I going to say? The TikTok thing, you said about the Oracle servers. Why hasn't Larry Ellison said anything if, TikTok's one of their biggest customers?
Why would Larry
Is he busy
Ellison,
on his yachts? What's he doing?
I mean, kind of.
You don't give a shit? I mean, that's a big
no,
customer.
why put himself at the center? He's making the money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
he's in his mind, he's making the money no matter what happens.
Right.
Like, why would he risk political capital?
Yep.
Exposing himself.
Right.
Why anger the politicians who are allowing the money to flow into his pocket?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it seems like there are several reasons for the ban. I mean, one of them is, of course, like TikTok's algorithm or whatever. Like, their app is so much better than Instagram.
So much better.
American social media companies, like, for example, Meta, Instagram, whatever, they're losing out on a lot of that advertising revenue. And plus, I wouldn't be surprised if American social media companies work with the American government or the deep state to put out
they were
certain
trying
agendas.
to ape TikTok too. In 2020, when a lot of these talks were happening too, they interviewed 4 tech CEOs. I think it was Jeff Bezos, the guy at Microsoft, it was Mark, and it was who else was it? Someone else. It was 4 people. And they kind of like asked them like all these laundry list questions, like, oh, do you think China is stealing IP from this country? And then like even Jeff Bezos was like, there might be some knockoff Chinese products on our website, but as far as IP, no. And Mark Zuckerberg was the only one who said, yes, there's definitely IP theft from China.
Which is a funny thing to say from a guy who deliberately sold a bunch of information and data to China.
And then the day afterwards, Instagram came out with the fucking Reels thing.
Man, Mark.
How funny.
And then, soon after that, YouTube came out with fucking
Projection
Shorts.
Right.
So they're trying to like, that's what, Facebook basically did to Snapchat.
Yeah, but that's
right?
just the format.
They tried to buy Snapchat.
Yeah.
And then, Evan Spiegel said no.
And then all of a sudden,
And
stories.
Instagram stories. And to Mark's credit, I guess, like, that just fucking destroyed Snapchat, in my opinion.
It did. But, like, for instance, like, on Instagram, like, there's, like, this joke on TikTok where people are oftentimes like, oh, I was scared for a second that I fell on the wrong side of TikTok, because TikTok's algorithm is so strong. Like, if you're like anti-Trump, they're never going to show you pro-Trump stuff. Whereas on Instagram, for instance, like, even though I don't watch any pro-Zionist content, I get ads.
All the fucking, like, on X too now.
I get ads for, like, birthright trips.
Wow.
To Israel. And I'm like, what? Why? What? And, like, I get, like, pro-Israel ads all the time. It's gotten so bad that I started screenshotting it, because I'm like, this is insane.
So these birthright trips, these are like free trips that Jews can take to visit their homeland or whatever of Israel, right? Who actually funds this then? The Israeli government?
Yes.
And then they get the funding from what?
Here.
From the U.S.?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Anyway, so another reason that TikTok might be banned is, we have a video here from Twitter. It says, just in, U.S. Senator reveals why the government wants TikTok banned. It says, pro-Palestinian and Hamas videos on TikTok have more reach than the top 10 U.S. news websites combined.
That's 100% the reason. Because think about it. Joe Biden got elected because of TikTok. So why would someone then be anti-TikTok when that was literally what got him elected? It's because he's Genocide Joe now. And anti-Zionist content was at least up until like a month ago. I think TikTok has recently started putting a little bit more firm a grip on it because of all the scrutiny that they're getting in the media. And they're trying to be like, look, we're playing nice. But up until that point, it was like my feed was like Palestinian stuff like 90%. You know what I mean? So like of course,
Which makes sense because like you're tuned into kind of like that kind of conflict.
Exactly.
And so you want to see more of that content.
Exactly. So like, of course, Joe's going to be anti something that got him elected because now it's turning against him, you know, which is like, maybe you should just focus on like fixing the thing that is getting you booed.
Maybe you should focus on not having dementia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like your son is getting arrested and stuff. Like, you know, maybe like go focus on that.
And even Ted Cruz says he wants TikTok on because it spreads anti-Israel propaganda. I mean, it's not about China. They want it replaced with ADL-controlled platforms like Meta and YouTube where they can censor anti-Zionism.
Yeah, because like as soon as they were like, oh, we need to sell TikTok to an American country, it's like all the people that came forward were Zionists. Like instantly.
You know, Israel has way too much control over this country.
World.
Yeah, it's just insane. I don't know how they can.
And it's just like it's just this like vicious cycle too, because like AIPAC is obviously funded by Israel or whatever, and who funds Israel? We're paying Israel to fund AIPAC to fund Israel. It's just like this fucking cycle of money laundering that is happening.
Like, yes, it sucks to have one person in power, because if you have one person in power who sucks, like, you're fucked for a while. But it also sucks to have people just revolving door through it, because they're just trying to make, a lot of these politicians are just trying to make as much money as they can in the time that they're in office.
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up here.
Right.
That's how like 30 years have gone by and we have the same
political
roads.
capital, so they have, you know, buddies in corporations that.
And then like when you're out of office, it's like,
consultant.
Yeah. It's bullshit.
All right. Well, we have about 10 minutes left, and our last China thing of the day. This is another video from X. I guess it was originally taken off TikTok, but it says this is the former U.S. diplomat in China. And he says the U.S. must limit China's growth, even if pushing them back to poverty. Now, what's the deal with that? Why would the United States want China to remain poor? You know, if the U.S. says we want the Chinese people to be free from the grip of the CCP or whatever, the communists, we want to see a rising China where people are happy, but you know, like. But without the CCP, without the, you know, we want to give them democracy. But then why is this guy, the ambassador, the former, not ambassador maybe, but a former U.S. diplomat in China, why are they saying things like this, that they want China to be poor? What's that about?
This is our MO. This is America's MO. Because we know that the money is going into politicians' pockets and nothing's getting better. They know that they have to gaslight people into thinking that Americans...
find a scapegoat.
Right. And we do this in wars all the time. We say, oh, this country needs help. They need to be free. And then we free them. And then their economy goes to shit. It's just that as a country, we are insecure bullies. That's what we are.
And in addition, it's also about like, you know, how capitalist imperialism works. It's just kind of like, hey, if a country can't make like high quality goods or you know, high like consumer goods, they're going to have to buy from us, and we can sell that for them to expensive prices, and they sell us raw material and labor for cheap. But if China keeps developing and improves its own productive forces, they don't need, you know, if they can build their own Huawei, if they can build their own BYD, if they can build their own, you know, TikTok, etc., whatever, they no longer need any of those like high-priced American products anymore. They're like, oh, we could just buy Chinese. And that's actually what's happening in China, where more and more people, they're like saying like, oh, we don't need an iPhone. We can buy a Huawei. It's really nice. And so this is what they're trying to stop, because they know that they're just trying to kneecap the competition. They say they're all about free markets and all that kind of stuff, but it's all fucking bullshit. They just want to maintain power and control over the markets themselves.
It's actually funny you say kneecap, because I was literally going to say America's Tanya Harding.
Yeah.
To China's Michelle Kwan, where like you just see that they're doing better. So instead of working on yourself to be better, you just try to break Michelle Kwan's
And that's kind of
kneecap.
like where I was going last episode about the white liberals. They're basically seeing that Asian Americans are crushing them. So what are they going to do? They're going to kneecap us with affirmative action.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I just don't think it's just the white liberals that are doing it. I think they're like shared objective.
Sure.
With
I mean, like, look, the whole, American institution is, I don't even think about parties really
Yeah,
anymore.
I don't either.
They're all
in
like
cahoots.
Nancy Pelosi and fucking Mitch McConnell, they're having drinks after Congress.
They are 100%.
Yeah.
Are there some that are trying to change it? Sure. Do some of them then get complicit and then have to play the game to try to get what they want? Yeah, for sure.
Who would those? Who would some of those be like?
Like AOC.
You still think
Well, I
she
think
wants
she was
to help?
corrupt from the
I
beginning.
think she wanted to at some point, but I think somewhere along the line she had to play nice to get some of the stuff she wanted, and now the lines
just
are
the Met
so
Gala
blurred.
thing was just so.
At this point,
gauche.
I think she's completely flipped. At this point,
She's.
Do you
The
see her?
Met Gala was like 100% that.
Yeah, but
that moment.
But even recently on was it TikTok or Instagram or whatever?
Oh,
she,
but about anti-Semitism.
she was like so upset about anti-Semitism.
Oh,
I'm
I
like,
didn't see that.
why don't you use that energy for
The
people being
genocide.
massacred?
Well, because I've seen her speak up about Palestine too, but it wasn't
It's
as...
all so performative.
Yeah, it did feel a little performative. It didn't feel like authentic, the anger and the...
She's just a.
What about when she went to the border and she was like crying because of
That
the
was pathetic.
kids in cages and she was wearing all white?
That was just a fucking photo op. That's what that was.
That's what I'm saying. At some point, you become a politician. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Because like you
But
need...
she's not even that skilled at
Yeah,
that,
but like
that
you
game
need
either.
the funding, which means like you have to
Right.
rub shoulders, and like at
Right.
some point, you become complicit and become part of the machine.
I think the most she did was like her first day in office. She like staged a sit-in in Pelosi's office. I think. Do you remember that?
Oh.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was it. And I think they just went in there like, bitch, what the fuck are you doing? Get the fuck up. Like, you're not going to do shit. Like, you want to just get out and
Reminds me of,
you want to
like,
go back to
the
being a
meme where it's
barista?
like, shut the fuck up, bitch.
Who?
It's just like this meme on the internet. It's
The
like
Rock.
a video. Yeah,
Rock.
yeah, the Rock.
He just said,
shut up, bitch.
Shut up, bitch. Yeah.
on the microphone.
But I think AOC, she realized like, oh, I'm being silly. Like, this is not going to... And she's like, okay, well, I can go back to Starbucks or whatever she was doing. Or
Barista, or no,
She's
she was
a
a
bartender.
bartender, right?
A
bartender, or I
think she
can
was like a bartender for like a month.
have
or
this
something.
wealth and power and, good retirement package and everything and, go to the Met Gala and,
And you never know, maybe like 10 years from now, she'll be like, haha, this is why I was doing this. But
Yeah, but I
don't feel
remember
confident in
before
that.
she won, she said, if you have courage, if you're brave, if you're a one-time congressperson, so what? You can get a lot of change done in 2 years or 4 years if you have courage or something like that. And that line actually tricked me. I'm like, wow, she doesn't care if she's a one-time person. But then, once she got in,
And then she kicked,
but that's also like a
she
very
kicked Bernie to the curb,
naive
too, right?
view too. You know what I mean? Because once you get in, you realize how much red tape there is, and you realize you can't do that much in one, which means that now she has to be multiple. And now, again,
but at the
part of
very
machine.
least, I would hope she would say like, "Hey guys, I'm just letting you know that the system is so corrupt that we can't fix anything here."
But she can't say that. Like, just theoretically, if she is still on the right side, she can't say that. You know what I mean? Like, again, you're gonna anger people who are funding your campaign.
She can.
I'm not
if she
saying that
didn't
that's
care
what's
about her
happening.
career.
I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying theoretically, even if she was still good,
She has never been good.
So
in my
I
opinion.
then
I
wonder.
think she's better than many
No,
of the
I
politicians.
think she's super manipulative and she knows exactly what she's doing. I think everyone thinks that she's this idealist that's been turned corrupt because of the system or whatever. No, I think she was corrupt from the very beginning.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder about, like David Kim, who's running for Congress. Like, I know him personally. I've known him for years, and I know him really well, okay? And I even told him once when I didn't know him that well, I was like, I wasn't sure if you were a genuine dude. I thought you were just pretending. And he just started laughing at me. And I said, but yeah, I'm starting to think like you're a genuine guy, And anyway, he found that funny, and working with him and talking to him privately and stuff, he is a really genuine guy who does care about people. But I don't know what because I do believe he will win. He got 47% the first time, 49% the last time. I'm like, hey, maybe he'll get 51 this time. And especially now with the Gaza thing, and the incumbent Jimmy Gomez is like a huge Israel supporter. So I think David's going to win, but then once he wins, what's the path he's going to take? Like, is he going to be like another AOC, or is he actually going to be like really fight? That's
a one-term fighter?
I mean, he's also
but
an
you
attorney.
can fight as much as you want one term. It doesn't mean you're going to accomplish anything. You know what I mean? I don't think anyone in politics can be successful without becoming part of the machine.
Yeah. Like
It's
I
just
said
impossible.
before, I was just like, everyone in federal government is part of the deep state.
But what do
Yeah.
you think David will do? Do you think he's just going to like cave and be like, all right, let me join the deep state? Or
I don't know what he's going to do. I'm not David. But
Yeah,
I mean,
don't know
we
enough.
had lunch together once, right? We
right,
went to El
but what I'm
Cholo.
saying
You're
is
the
that,
one who
like,
could answer that question best. You know him better than anyone here.
Yeah. But
All-
like,
you know-
basically there's two
How's it feel now, Michael?
No,
there's two
yeah.
paths, right? Let's say he does, stick to his ideals or whatever, then he becomes a one-term guy, and then he gets booted
Right.
out. But if he does, it's just basically binary. It's
But
like,
he does.
Either way, nothing gets done.
But he has criticized AOC even here, like on our Culture Shock program. He mentioned how she was just all talk, and even it's okay. But I privately talked to David. I'm like, so what are you gonna do? And all I said to David was, hey, you know what? Once you get in office, like I know how it can be, maybe. So I'm not gonna say any shit against you, but at the very least,
Doug is.
No, I said at the very least, as long as you push for like peace in Korea, you try to fight for an end to the Korean War, like I'll still support you. Because that's an important issue for me. Like, just don't fucking go against the peace movement. Don't try to keep the war ongoing or anything, and then, we'll be cool. That's all I really said to him.
And then, don't say that you don't want to talk about or be asked about Korean stuff anymore. Like, whoever
your
that was.
constituents.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's just some guy who works for the city.
Oh, yeah.
I think he works.
Just
in
don't do that,
Yeah.
and you'll be good.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope David does well, and
Because sometimes you get frustrated and you think about that too. You're like, the only way things are going to change. You're like, I might go into politics, and you're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. A lot of times when I complain about shit here, and I'm like, man, and people are like, vote. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, because I think some of those people who do go for office, they might have some ignorance, or they're refusing to see the truth. Because it's what's going to happen. You think you're going to make changes, but you're not going to be able to. And then you're going to need to stay in office for multiple times in order to get anything actually done. And then by then, you're actually more concerned about your fundraising than you are about your...
And not only that, if you are actually trying to make changes and big corporate interests are not happy with that,
Yep.
they're going to fund your opponents to the fucking teeth.
Or have you killed.
So, and that's true. So,
Like Boeing.
I mean, it seems there's no real solution through voting, at least.
No.
Voting is not the solution.
No.
So, what is the
Burn
solution?
everything to the ground.
It seems
Well,
the only
that's-
solution
yeah,
is.
I mean, I'm joking partially, obviously. But
No, it seems true. Like the
Yeah.
only solution is like a second American Revolution.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be physical, but I don't know
Communist.
what it looks like. But
Have there been bloodless coups?
Communist or...
No, in
just
history.
In history, like
There have
in
been bloodless
modern.
coups,
Have there?
but
That haven't been detrimental to the population? I'm not talking about politicians.
I mean,
Yeah,
these
I
are
don't know.
usually after wars, abdicating.
Right. Well, anyway, I
One-
don't know.
not
I don't
wanting
know.
to
I don't know how we're
forego
gonna.
Yeah,
responsibility.
I mean, also, we're not conspiring anything. This is just a theoretical conversation.
Can't the Google AI, like when we're on our YouTube, they can
Yeah.
summarize all this and send this
100%.
to the Pentagon?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
these three guys are discussing the overthrow. I shouldn't. Okay.
Well,
Also,
Google was founded by the CIA. so-
we also condemn what happened on January 6th. So there's that.
Not really.
Doug, shut your mouth.
All right. So that's it. I don't know what the solution is, but for now, I think all we can do is continue.
China. China's the solution.
Well, China.
Right.
I think China's a solution, maybe like for the international community. Like,
Do you mean move to China?
I mean, for Asian
I don't want to learn.
guys.
I don't want to learn Chinese, but okay,
No.
it's gonna be too hard for me.
No.
But I mean,
Ande ba,
no, I mean in terms of like global, like the global peace thing. I think China will play a major role in the future
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
helping maintain more peace. But in terms of domestically here at home as Americans, I really don't see how we're gonna. It just seems like there's no.
We're in like this
solution.
–
intractable.
It's too selfish here. People are being, elected into office, but they're only looking out for themselves there,
Yeah. So, I mean, for now, all we can do is really, with
Continue to complain.
with programs like this, we just kind of educate and inform our community or discuss these ideas to maybe wake up more of the Korean American population to what's going on here. We don't have that many subscribers yet.
I think it's just because like
People just need to be unplugged from the matrix as well.
when our parents came here in the 80s, 90s, 70s, it was a better place to come here. Like from the Korea back then, because like Korea back then, a lot of people don't know this, but it was a fucking shithole. Like after the Korean War, it was actually worse than most global South. It was like at the bottom of the barrel of the global
It was the
South.
bottom of the barrel, yeah.
My parents talk all the time about how they never had meat with growing up or whatever. It was pretty shitty. And so, yeah, like in the 70s, 80s, especially with Chun Do-won coming to power, a lot of our parents were like, fuck this, like totalitarian shithole. Like, let's go to America. And so for our parents' generation, yeah, that image of America being, better than Korea or better than Asia or better than China, I don't think that'll ever go away because it's just kind of like they've, come here and they've seen, oh yeah, life is significantly better than it is in Korea. And like they told me all my life in Korea that it was terrible in China. So it can't be even good in China because like, first of all, America's better than Korea and, Korea is better than China. So in their minds, like in mind math, they're like, oh, America, goat.
Yeah, but does anyone feel that way in Korea anymore?
No, I
don't
think
think
like
so.
the people that come here that are Koreans these days are like the socialites, the rich people who have enough money to have a nice life in LA or New York.
Or people who had such a shitty life in Korea that they're like, well, maybe I could just start fresh here.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
If you're gonna start fresh from Korea, I'd probably go somewhere else, like the
yeah,
Philippines
don't come.
or
That's what the
Vietnam.
Kamala
come
Harris.
here.
Don't come.
Yeah.
Because, I had this conversation with this guy. He's white, and he has a younger brother who's married to a Korean woman, and they live in Korea, and they have a family there. And the first time I met this guy, you can tell he doesn't have that much going on up there. He's like, don't you think my brother and his family should move back here? He's like, we have better culture. And da-da-da. I was like, America's education system is literally like one of the worst. And I was like, Korea, I'm pretty sure is like top 2 or 3. I was like, they don't have shootings. I was like, whatever. I was like, and you could just like see it on his face. He's like,
Clean subways.
what, dude? I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't know what
Yeah,
stupid shit
you're a
talking
barbarian.
about.
He's
Yeah.
American.
He's American.
He's
You
just American.
are a barbarian.
Yeah. I was like, you're an idiot.
That's what I call white
Goddamn
people
Terran.
a lot on
Yeah. Okay.
Terran barbarians.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, that's
Helping the fucking Zerg.
yeah. Koreans don't even open their doors. They're all automatic now.
all right. Well, that was it for today's China episode. Maybe we're gonna call it. What should we call this? Why does America hate China?
China versus
Planning
the
on
U.S.
trying to go to China this year. I want to try to go for the 75th anniversary.
Of the founding.
Yeah.
Right? Oh,
But
49, right? 1949.
People told me it's like Times Square in New York City on New Year's Eve on like steroids. So I'm like, maybe not.
Okay, yeah, don't do that. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in for this China episode, and we'll be back next time without Douglas Kim, but Michael Wan will be back from his deep state trip, and Ed will be back, hopefully, and we'll discuss the latest in developments then. Doug, why don't you're going to be gone for what, like a week? Or
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah, why don't you give us an update on what's up in New York and Hartsdale and when the Asian community out
We
there?
mean right now or afterwards?
Yeah, after you come back.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Fine.
Tell us now.
Yeah. And I hope your dad's, recuperating well, and hope you guys have a good time playing golf, and hope your mom's well and your sister and everybody, yeah?
Yep.
All right, and maybe you should visit the K-Town there and send us some pictures or something, okay?
The K Street. We call it K Street.
K Street, 32nd.
32nd and
yeah.
5th, between 5th and Lexington,
Yeah.
I think. Or no.
Lexington.
It's the smallest town there ever was.
It's not a town. It's like a K Avenue.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace. Yeah.
I guess Flushing is more K-Town there.
Flushing.
There's like an area in Flushing that's pretty Korean.
And then what about Jersey, like Palisades or something?
Palisades,
North
Fort
Jersey.
Lee.
Yeah.
We used to go to Fort Lee, my family, to like jjajangmyeon restaurants.
Yeah, some of the best Korean restaurants on the East Coast is definitely in North Jersey.
But I would say the LA ones are still better than them.
100%.
Yeah.
What's your dinner? What's your dinner plan for today? You meeting?
I don't have anything going on.
You want to